The evening sky of Udaipur was painted with hues of gold and lavender, as Aavya and Vidhi sat on the terrace of Verma mansion, their legs dangling over the ledge, silence stretching between them like an old, familiar friend. Aavya, Vidhi's voice was fragile like a glass about to shatter. Have I lost you too? Aavya turned, startled. What are you saying, Vidhi? You're getting distant. You don't talk to me like before. You don't share. You're my solace, Aavya. My reflection. Why are you going away from me? Aavya's heart clenched. I'm not going anywhere, Vidhi, she said softly, a bittersweet smile tugging at her lips. I want you to be happy. Vidhi's eyes shimmered. But I'm not, and neither are you. Aavya exhaled, her gaze drifting to the horizon. In Rajasthan, everyone knows who Aavya Verma is. They might not say it out loud, but I've learned to read minds through their eyes. I'm a truth they all wish to hide. Don't say that, Vidhi's voice trembled. It's true, I am Randhir Verma's hidden past. That's why I keep my distance, Vidhi, because your happiness, your respect, matters to me more than anything. Vidhi's tears finally broke free. But Aavya, your distance is suffocating me. Aavya smiled, wiping Vidhi's tears. Let's suffocate together then. Vidhi broke into a soft laugh, pulling Aavya into a tight hug. Market. Later that evening, the sisters strolled through Hathipal Bazaar, the vibrant market alive with colors and chaos. They bargained over jutties, debated endlessly over poetry books, and giggled like schoolgirls at the food stalls. For a while, the weight on Vidhi's heart seemed to lift. But as they stood in front of a temple, the looming decision returned. I'm still confused, Aavya, Vidhi confessed, her palms joined in prayer. I don't want to disappoint Papa or Ma, but my heart, it's restless. Aavya linked her arm through Vidhi's. Then listen to it, Vidhi. Do what feels right to you. But I don't even know what I feel, Vidhi whispered. I don't even know if he feels anything, and Hridhaan, I don't know him at all. Aavya smiled gently. Sometimes the answers come in whispers, not shouts. Give yourself time. Vidhi hugged Aavya tightly, her unshed tears soaking into Aavya's shoulder. Aavya, as always, embraced her pain, soothing her with words she herself needed to hear. Agnihotri Haveli. The next evening, the Verma family visited Agnihotri mansion. Discussions were formal, smiles were diplomatic. And somewhere in between, Varun Agnihotri and Randhir Verma fixed the engagement date, 1 month from now. Vidhi felt her breath falter. Her palms sweated as she politely nodded to the elders, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know why, but it felt like something inside her was breaking. Across the hall, Angad's world tilted. He had no right to feel this way. But as he heard his brother's engagement date being decided, with the girl he had started to see as his solace, his heart cracked. He remained silent, hiding his turmoil behind a composed smile. On the second floor, leaning against the balcony, Hridhaan watched everything with unreadable eyes. He heard the date, acknowledged it, but felt nothing. Or so he told himself. Because in the darkest corner of his mind, a fleeting shadow appeared, long curly hair, silver bangles, a Jola swinging by her side. His fists clenched. He shook his head, scoffing at his own betrayal. Control, Hridhaan, he muttered. You are the master of your mind. He despised anything that controlled him, especially his own thoughts. Lake. That night, beneath the serene moonlight reflecting on the Agnihotri Haveli's lake, Angad and Hridhaan sat side by side, their silences speaking louder than words. You're lucky, Bai, Angad started, his voice strained yet composed. Vidhi is, she's different, simple, soft-spoken. She'll understand you even when you don't speak. Hridhaan's brow twitched and smirked. You talk as if you know her. Angad smiled bitterly. I've met her once. You don't need 1,000 meetings to know who she is. People like her are rare. Hridhaan's sharp eyes narrowed. For a moment, suspicion flared. But Angad's honesty was unwavering. I want you to have someone who sees the man behind the empire, Bai. Vidhi will be that person. The words were knives in Angad's own heart, yet he spoke them with conviction. Hridhaan looked at his brother, his face stoic, but his mind whirling. "Is there something I should know, Angad?" Angad looked at his anchor, his buy. Something didn't sit right. But Hridhaan let it go. For now. In the days that followed, Angad found himself becoming more protective of Aavya whenever he was around. Every small injustice, every overlooked glance in her family pierced him. She was invisible in a house that should have worshipped her existence. And Angad, he couldn't understand why this stirred something so deep within him. Meanwhile, for Hridhaan, the shadow of Aavya lingered. He didn't even know her properly. She didn't exist in his world, but the problem was she existed in his mind. And that was enough to fuel his rage. He hated this losing control. But the more he resisted, the more she occupied the spaces he had kept locked. His curiosity turned dangerous. He wanted to brush it off, but every day, every hour, that faceless girl was clawing deeper into his iron mind. And Hridhaan Agnihotri was not a man who allowed anyone, not even a ghost of a girl, to control him. Next day, the lake beside the old Shiv temple shimmered under the morning sun, its ripples dancing lazily as if unbothered by the chaos of life. But amidst this serenity, Aavya sat alone on the temple steps, her diary resting on her lap, pen in hand, pouring her heart into fragile words only the lake could hear. Her eyes, always distant, always searching, gazed beyond the water, seeking a world that had room for her. She wrote, "Lonely is not the absence of people. It is the absence of belonging. I live in a house full of names, but none ever call mine with love. I smile, not because I am happy, but because no one will ask why I'm not." The silver jumka dangled from her left ear, catching the morning light, while her long, cascading hair rested on her right shoulder. Every movement of her wrist made her silver bangles chime softly, the only sound that reminded the world she existed. She was beauty personified, but a lonely beauty. A painting admired from afar but never touched. On the other side of the temple courtyard, a line of luxurious black SUVs came to a halt. The Agnihotri family had arrived. The day held a special manet, a vow kept secretly by Rupali Agnihotri for her son Hridhaan. She had brought him for a puja, hopping to tame the storm brewing within him. "Please just this time, Beta," her words. Everyone in the temple bowed, with folded hands. Their heads lowered in reverence, but their eyes discreetly flickered towards Hridhaan Agnihotri and Angad Agnihotri. Two names, two storms. Where Hridhaan stood, silence followed. An imposing presence wrapped in ruthless elegance, his face was a cold sculpture, unbothered, untouched, as if even the gods themselves needed to earn his attention. He folded his hands mechanically before the deity, not out of devotion, but because rituals demanded it. His dark eyes, sharp as blades, scanned the temple with a quiet warning, "Stay out of my way." Beside him, Angad soaked in the limelight with his charming smirk, greeting people with folded hands and a royal nod. But the crowd knew the power was split. One man ruled with smiles, the other with fear. Rika felt proud. Her Angad was getting what he deserved. In a corner of the temple, Vira's jaw tightened, her hands trembling as she adjusted her sari unnecessarily, eyes burning holes into their backs. Every garland offered, every whispered greeting to Amarjit Agnihotri Saab, Varun Agnihotri and Vijay Agnihotri, and Agnihotri Khandan Ki Waris sliced through her pride. Her son, Raman, stood beside her like a faded shadow, a name without weight. His smile was plastered, forced, as he greeted the few who remembered him. But in a gathering where presence spoke louder than words, Raman was invisible. Vira's eyes darkened with venomous envy. Hridhaan Agnihotri, with his cold stares, commands the crowd like a silent monarch, while my Raman is reduced to pleasantries and empty smiles. The rituals commenced, the priest's chants echoing in the sacred air, but Vira's mind was elsewhere, plotting, seething. And Hridhaan, he knew. He could feel the daggers in Vera's gaze, but to a man like him, envy was amusement. His lips curled ever so slightly, not a smile, but a silent message. You can glare all you want, Vera Shekar, but power doesn't bow to bitterness. But as the family distributed clothes and food to beggars, Hridhaan's phone buzzed. "Handle it yourself," he muttered coldly into his Bluetooth earpiece, walking away from the crowd to take the call. And that's when he saw it. Her. Or rather, the shadow of her. Just a few steps away, by the lake where the temple steps descended into water, she sat. Same posture. Same back. The silver jumka swung gently as she tilted her head, her hair flowing like a dark river onto her shoulder. The soft clinking of her silver bangles was the only sound amidst the distant chants. A cold, sharp wave surged through Hridhaan's veins. That shadow again, Aavya, her name. The faceless girl, haunting his mind, had dared to appear in front of him once more. A rageful curiosity, one he couldn't define, overtook him. His feet moved without his permission, his strides predatory, cutting through the air between them. But before he could reach, a small boy, barefoot with hopeful eyes, ran up to him, blocking Hridhaan's path. "Baya kuchtadu, book lagi hai," the boy's frail voice begged. Hridhaan's jaw tightened. His eyes flickered from the boy to the girl's back. He dug into his pocket, pulled out a wad of notes, and shoved them into the boy's tiny hands. But in that fleeting second, when his eyes drifted to the boy, she vanished. Gone again. The very same steps where she sat now lay empty, the water reflecting nothing but a void. Hridhaan's eyes narrowed, scanning every corner of the temple courtyard, but she had disappeared like mist under sunlight. Except a notebook lay abandoned on the steps, a pen resting atop its cover. His steps slowed, his anger simmering under his skin as he bent down and picked up the book. The first page was open. Her handwriting, delicate, slanted, yet carrying a weight, stared back at him. "I'm a mosaic of untold stories, pieced together with glances, remembered by none, but carried in my own silence." For a moment, the ice in Hridhaan's heart cracked, the weight of her words punching through his indifference. He didn't know her. He didn't want to know her. But now he needed to. "Who the hell are you?" he whispered, flipping through the pages, each line unraveling a girl who didn't belong to his world, yet was pulling him deeper into hers. It was hateful. It was addictive. She was no longer a shadow. She was a challenge. And Hridhaan Agnihotri never left a challenge unfinished. The serene lake temple was now bustling with life, but Aavya's heart was in chaos. She returned to the temple steps, clutching a water bottle, expecting her diary to be resting where she had left it. But the spot was empty. Her heart dropped. No. Not this. Not her only confidant. Frantically, Aavya rushed up the stone stairs, her eyes scanning every corner of the courtyard. The scribbled pages held her deepest feelings, the words she could never say aloud. It wasn't just a book, it was her sanctuary. "Pandit Jai, did you see a notebook here? Beige cover. A pen was on it too," she asked breathlessly. The priest, midway arranging offerings, shook his head with an apologetic smile. "No, Beta, I've seen nothing." Defeated, she was about to give up when a broad-shouldered man standing near the parking area caught her attention. He was holding her notebook. Even from afar, his physique screamed authority, well-defined, upright, radiating an aura that made people look twice. But his back was to her. Aavya's heart quickened. She started running toward him, calling out, but her voice drowned amidst temple bells and chatter. Just as she reached closer, the man opened his car door and slid inside with lethal elegance. "No, please wait," she cried out, stretching her arm in desperation. But fate, cruel as ever, intervened. Someone tapped her on the shoulder. "Aavya." She turned sharply. And in that fleeting second, Hridhaan's eyes found her. From his car's rearview mirror, he saw it. The soft flick of her hair as she turned. The swing of her silver jumka. He couldn't see her face, but that silhouette, the maroon flow of her long dress, the silver bangles singing in their delicate rhythm, struck a chord deep inside his icy heart. For a breathless moment, his world stilled. That shadow girl. Again. That cursed sound of bangles, now louder than his own heartbeat. The car started moving, yet his gaze didn't waver. Through the mirror, he watched her searching, her eyes desperately scanning for her book. Then his eyes fell on the notebook, resting beside him on the seat. His grip tightened around it. This wasn't her notebook anymore. It was his. His possession now. And the fact that she wanted it back only made him want to own it even more, even if it meant keeping it away from her. Because Hridhaan Agnihotri never shared what he possessed. Not even if it rightfully belonged to someone else. Verma Haveli. Back at the Verma Haveli, a different scene unfolded. The grandeur of wedding preparations filled every corner of the mansion. Renowned stylists from Udaipur's finest boutiques showcased luxurious lehengas and gowns for the soon-to-be bride, Vidhi. Excitement glowed on Priya's face as she immersed herself in every detail, ensuring her daughter would have the wedding of the century. But in this symphony of celebrations, Aavya remained a shadow. Watching, observing, unnoticed. Vidhi tried finding her in the maze of relatives and helpers, but failed. But there was one person who knew where to find Aavya. Sudha Verma, Randhir's sister. Sudha, the only person who had loved both Vidhi and Aavya equally. The woman who had once introduced Aavya to her mother Kiyati's memories. She had been a mother figure to Aavya, a guardian of those untold stories no one else dared to speak of. Sudha found Aavya sitting quietly in the garden, scribbling something in a new notebook, a poor substitute for the one lost. Coming from behind, she whispered, "Lost your treasure, Bakai." Aavya's eyes welled up instantly. No one else could understand what that notebook meant to her, except Sudha Bua. With trembling lips, Aavya turned and hugged Sudha tightly, burying her face in her shoulder. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to let her guard down, because Sudha wasn't just her Bua. She was a reflection of her mother. "I miss Ma," Aavya whispered, her voice breaking. "I know, Bakai. I miss her too," Sudha sighed, stroking her hair gently. Collage. The next day, the world resumed its pace, but Aavya and Angad carved their own bubble amidst the chaos. They sat under their favorite tree in college, where Angad noticed her glancing at him, as if reading his soul. "Do you want to tell me something, Angad?" Aavya asked softly, her eyes patient yet piercing. For a moment, his heart stalled. Did she know about Vidhi? He quickly masked his emotions. "No, Aavya, I don't want to tell you anything. I want to make you happy." To shift her mind, he stood up, extending his hand. "Come, we're going to do something fun today." "What?" she asked, tilting her head, confused. "Pani puri," he grinned. Their laughter echoed in the narrow lanes of the local market as they savored spicy pani puri, free from all pretensions. But fate has its twisted humor. From across the street, Vidhi stood frozen, watching them. For the first time, she felt a sharp sting in her heart. Not jealousy, but a raw ache. A fear of losing something she never dared to claim. Her eyes filled with tears, not because Angad was with Aavya, but because she realized her own heart was slipping away and it was out of her control. But how could she be jealous of Aavya? Aavya was her soul, pure, selfless, unaware of her own impact on people. Aavya was the light Vidhi always sought refuge in. Agnihotri Haveli. The pages of the notebook were frayed now, not from time, but from Hridhaan's relentless fingers turning them over and over again. Verse page. Second page. Third page. Again and again. It had been a week. A week where the words of a faceless girl had haunted his nights, clawing their way into his guarded heart. A week where emotions, alien and unwanted, had stirred somewhere deep, bubbling like a forbidden secret. He didn't do feelings. He didn't allow them. For Hridhaan, life was a transaction, calculated, efficient, cold. But Aavya, just a name, nothing more, had managed to seep into those cracks he never believed existed. The more he read, the more his obsession grew. And that was dangerous, because he knew himself too well. So he did what Hridhaan did best. Ignorance. He moved towards his wardrobe. A sleek wardrobe room designed for a man of his stature, opened to reveal a steel safe. He took out the notebook, stared at it one last time, then locked it inside. Buried. Just like the feeling he refused to acknowledge. I have a responsibility now, he whispered to himself. His soon-to-be wife, Vidhi Verma, was a responsibility, a transaction that needed completion. He may have slept with countless women, but he never cheated. And this shadow girl would forever remain in the shadows. He promised himself. He would never think of her again. While Hridhaan was busy locking away his chaos behind a wall of silence, it was Angad who was handed a responsibility that felt heavier than it should have. The Kuldevi Mandir ritual, an age-old tradition where the new bride offers prayers before stepping into her new life. Predictably, Hridhaan had refused. I don't waste time in such nonsense, he had said, his voice cold enough to freeze blood. No one dared to argue. And so, the weight shifted to Angad. You will accompany Vidhi. It's just a formality, his daddy said. Just a formality. 2 hours up, 2 hours down. But fate, as always, had other plans. The journey began with nervous glances and awkward silences. Vidhi sat clutching the edge of her dupatta, her fingers trembling as she stole fleeting looks at Angad, who was busy pretending to look out of the window, though his mind was far from calm. You're very quiet today, Angad remarked, breaking the ice with a lopsided smile. Vidhi's lips curved slightly. I don't have much to say. But her heart, it was screaming. As the car snaked through the narrow hill roads, the clouds darkened, and soon the rain came. Not a gentle drizzle, but a relentless downpour that blurred the world into a gray sheet. The roads became rivers, paths blocked, and they had no choice but to seek refuge in a small stone cottage tucked by the hills, a forgotten remnant of simpler times. We'll wait it out here, Angad said, shaking the rain off his jacket as they entered. The cottage was dimly lit, the wooden floor creaking under their steps, and the only source of warmth was a small fireplace that struggled to breathe life into the cold air. What was meant to be an innocent escape slowly morphed into a night of whispered confessions and stolen glances. Vidhi sat by the fire, rubbing her palms together, shivering from more than just the cold. Angad sat across, eyes flickering between the flames and her. You're shivering, he said, removing his jacket and placing it gently over her shoulders. You didn't have to, she whispered. I wanted to. Silence. But the kind that wasn't empty. It was heavy, charged. Their eyes met, and that was the mistake. Because in that gaze, words weren't needed. Vidhi's breath hitched as Angad's fingers brushed a wet strand of hair off her cheek. His touch was feather-light, yet it sent a shiver down her spine. Vidhi, we shouldn't, he mumbled, but neither of them moved. I know, she breathed, her voice trembling, but I'm so tired of doing what I should. The space between them disappeared. It wasn't a kiss born out of love. It was hunger. Loneliness. A desperate search for solace in a world that had only taught them duty and sacrifice. His lips crashed onto hers, urgent, questioning, yet softening when she didn't pull away. Her hands fisted his shirt as if anchoring herself from drowning in emotions she wasn't prepared to feel. The fire crackled. So did their hearts. Their breaths grew ragged, the intensity deepening as Angad's hands cupped her face, pulling her closer, until the rest of the world vanished. It wasn't just physical. It was two broken souls, finding a fleeting moment of escape in each other. But it didn't last. Because when dawn broke, so did the illusion. Vidhi sat on the edge of the bed, her dupatta clenched in her fists, eyes swollen with unshed tears. Angad stood by the window, his back towards her, but the guilt was thick in the air. Vidhi, his voice cracked. Please, please, Vidhi, no one should know about this. I don't even know what this was. I can't face Hridhaan. Vidhi looked up, her heart torn apart. You think I can? Do you think I can look into my parents' eyes after this? Her voice wasn't angry. It was shattered. I was supposed to be the perfect daughter, Angad, obedient, pure. And last night, she choked, last night I became a sinner in my own eyes. Angad turned, eyes bloodshot, face pale. It wasn't supposed to happen, I swear, Vidhi, but I'm so lost. We both are, she whispered, wiping her tears. But this mistake will haunt me forever. He knelt in front of her, holding her hands, trembling. Promise me, Vidhi, no one can ever know. She nodded, tears cascading down her cheeks. The weight of betrayal was now stitched into their souls. And outside, the rain continued to pour, as if trying to wash away a sin that was already etched too deep.